Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Flower Code podcast. This is our third episode.
Yes.
And did you get any feedback on the last episode that we did?
Yes, we did an episode with Kimberly and people really like it, but it's just giving us some extra tips, what they would love to hear from us.
Yeah.
And it's kind of giving us way where can we go?
Yeah.
Which kind of topic we can discuss, which I'm quite excited about that.
Something that I would love to touch on is when you first started Flowers to Impress School of Floristry, how did you go about sourcing flowers and getting flowers? Because as I understand it, there wasn't a Toowoomba flower market at the time, right? So where did you get flowers from?
Sure, that's a very good question. So I started 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2003. And that's probably now making us 20 years in the business.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Yes.
Happy 20th birthday.
I love.
You're 20 again.
Yes, I love that.
That's pretty cool.
I'm kind of young with the school.
Yeah.
And so when I started, I was like, we just covering last episode, I was working together under Kimberly Umbrella Academy of Career Training, which is fantastic. She was beautiful and amazing mentor. And flowers in that time was really lovely around Toowoomba. We have quite a lot of growers.
Oh, so there was a lot of farms.
Yeah. We didn't have a flower market like we have, a Toowoomba flower market, which we will probably bring Marine some of our next episode. But yes, so I have to kind of go to the farm, and I need to kind of source flowers, whatever I needed. In that time, students actually need to have we supply all flowers for them, so they're not like they supply flowers, so I supply all the flowers. So it was very good and interesting, because in that case, you know, I try to pick up the best quality. I try to
to
choose the color and everything. So it's very easy for the students, which is at the moment they need to source their own things. So it's not really easy, because particularly when you're starting, maybe, I tended to just get pink color all the time, or I tended to just get the roses because I love the roses. So teaching the students how they can pick up not what they like, what their potential customers will love, is something that is, can be challenging for them. Yes. But in that time, I will source. So what I really like it, and maybe some of future podcasts, we can interview some of the growers around the area. But in that area, we have Floranda Flower, which is still existing, but they grow most of the flowers. And I even this time remember how is amazing roses, carnations, even anthurium they grow.
I remember as a kid going with you to these places.
Wow.
And
so what did you thought about the places?
I thought it was quite annoying that I had to get up so early in the morning to go with you.
Sure.
Because where we lived, it was pretty far to these farms, right?
It's actually didn't been very far, maybe for you.
I felt it was pretty far. I wanted to go to school, and then Mum was like, "No, we have to get up early in the morning. We have to pick up flowers."
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So I remember we'd get up in the morning, we'd go to like Florenda Flowers, for example, and we'd get there and they have all those greenhouses, and I'd just be sitting in the car just waiting. And I hated it. And there was no iPhones or iPads or anything back then. So you just kind of twiddle your thumbs for like however long it took you to find flowers.
Probably around maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes. Yeah.
To
pick up everything what I need. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you find out like which like what times you could get flowers and which flowers were a good quality? Did you have to go do a lot of research, go around and like check out the different farms?
First, we just check up what is locally, because when I start the school with this very small number of the students, I didn't order anything from Brisbane or any other market. It was everything sourced locally. which is fantastic. Like I said, we have even these days, I remember in roses, how beautiful is incarnation. So, yes, so they didn't been hard to get it where is around. Only things we was limited. I wouldn't be able to kind of have when we're learning kind of line flowers or when we're learning tropical or something like that, I didn't been able to get at that. It will be kind of
Okay.
telling them, what is, but I wouldn't be able to get everything what we kind of have this time. Like flowers started more and more coming from overseas, like all import. And, before the COVID, we had mainly import flowers than our locally. So like picture change completely. So when locally, when we get locally, whatever you have locally, you may have a good, very good quality, last longer flowers, but you may not have so many variety.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to get like some exotic version of a rose, maybe like a very specific Colombian that only
No,
grows
we didn't
overseas.
know what is Colombian roses.
Really?
No,
Wow.
no,
Okay.
no. In that time, we just have a local roses, which was fantastic growers. In that time, around the Toowoomba has a very good roses, seasonal flowers, all the time flowers like a gerbera,
Yeah.
carnation, different phylla, different foliage. So we have basic necessary things, but
You have to work with what you have.
yeah, what you have.
Okay, that's interesting.
And you have to be kind of creative. You have to solve the problem. So that's why being the florist is very smart things.
That's interesting. So what was trendy back then when you were making? Like I know you, and I know that whenever you design stuff for class or with students, it's usually something that you find that's trending at that time and that you find interesting and you think students will also enjoy and will also be useful for them. So do you remember by any chance like what was popular back then?
Yeah, I always try to just get more ahead of probably trend or anything like. You're right. Whatever I kind of figure out something new, I would like to share with my students. But you have to remember when I started the school, I didn't be in the beginning accredited.
Yeah.
So when I started to work with Kimberly, I was accredited. So you have to know that I wrote all of programs. So my understanding in that time, what working in a florist shop, it would be how I can see the floristry. So you can see, like when I see my notes and scripture and everything what I wrote actually in that time, and now that is like wow.
Like night and day,
Oh
right?
my goodness!
Like
Like
big
you can
difference.
get to the uni now, because it's all like how can I interpret what was the government guidelines or about, So basically
Okay.
depends of your own knowledge quite a lot. So I understood that when I started in school. So I have a pretty good knowledge, but I also have crazy imagination. But you have to put that in a right. Is it that valid to my students? I can teach them skills. I can teach them techniques. But are they going to be a value to my students? And let's say share some interesting story. I had probably my first generation of the students. I was thinking we learned the subject about sympathy design, so we learned how to make the wreath, coffin spray, single spray, and so on. So I was just thinking, well, that should be enough. I thought probably we should teach them how to do the cross, but I was thinking, nah, probably nah. Nobody probably will ask them cross. Guess what? When one of my students just get out of the school and start her own business in a little town around the Toowoomba, she ring me maybe 10 days after and she said, Debbie, I have to make the cross. I don't know how to do it. So, and I learned my lesson as well, because I went to particularly that students and I showed them how to make the cross and so on. but I learn my lesson as well. So it's not what I want. Even sometimes, like if it's a government package that we teaching too old, I would probably step on the time, and I will module my lesson to
kind of
be
modernize it if it's a bit old
exactly for
fashioned.
that time.
Okay.
Like, when at the moment government package is quite old, but doesn't really matter. We're still teaching our students, how to be eco-friendly, how to make arrangements that is more sustainable using the, different eco-friendly materials and stuff like that. We don't necessarily cover that in a government regulation. It will come because I know, but we step on the time. But that's all come through the experience and really big hunger for knowledge. And that's something that doesn't really matter how young or old I am, I always willing and searching for knowledge and how to apply in everyday floristry, how students can be successful and so on.
So it's really about equipping the
yes.
students with the
Yes.
skills necessary that they
Yes.
can pull off almost any design.
Yes.
Or if they don't know how to do it, they have the tools necessary to come up with a new way of doing a design.
Because they have skills, they have techniques that they've been covered. They learn through the school techniques that may be old techniques. Maybe they've been, I don't like to do this. But there comes certain time that you kind of need to make design, and it's a very challenging. You will pull that techniques, make customers happy. And
Okay, yeah. So it's not so much about trends, because trends will come and go, but it's about
Skills.
understanding like the underlying skill set.
Yes.
And wiring is hard. Like that's one thing that I found really hard when I was doing, particularly like the posy wiring.
Yes.
And also the corsage, because when you're making a corsage and you're putting the two ends together,
Yes.
like the wide corsage, I always left too much space at the top.
That's correct.
Because you think
That's most of the students make that too much
because
space.
you think you have it like you're putting it correctly, and then you leave like the gigantic gap at the top.
Yes.
Same when you're making like the halo,
Yes.
like the wide halo.
You think it's very easy. You just do it and you make such a big gap over there. Yeah, exactly. So that is the reason like we insist of the wiring in our school. In wiring, we insist on all those techniques, even they've been old one. Like for example, now if you want to be eco-friendly, most of arrangement, if you eco-friendly florist, you wouldn't make it with the brick. You may make with the chicken wire, make with the moss, you make with different material. And when you go back like 50 years ago, we used chicken wire. Like that is very old-fashioned and suddenly start to be very trendy. So how can you use it? But like what is the good with us? We're learning all those skills, how to use the brick, but also how to use with the chicken wire. What is the best way? What to not to do? Like, these days you see so many on YouTube things that everyone can make, YouTube film, and that's not good. And that's what I always, sometimes it's a funny story. Sometimes students want to impress me, and particularly when they're very big exam. So that, which is great idea, and they just come with completely new techniques. And I just said, oh my goodness, did we learn that? I said, no, I didn't. I learned on YouTube. I said, oh, really? You probably don't need to come to the school if you learn on the YouTube. So even if you want to learn from the YouTube, you need to know from which sources on YouTube you would love to learn. Because you don't want to learn from anyone, because what their credibility is. So I have to very be careful, because these days people said, oh, don't worry, Google and YouTube can teach me anything. Yes and no. It's really who is your sources of learning. Because if you don't know background, sadly, you can do really bad things.
So it's
And
really like the
and
quality, right?
it's quality, yeah. And sometimes some of those students, unfortunately, I need to turn down and say, I'm sorry, you need to demonstrate me the way how we learn, because you will hold accredited training certificate. So in your profession, you really need to demonstrate that, not YouTube program.
It's like that old saying, you need to know the rules before you can break them.
That's correct.
But I wonder, is there a place for like progress or any sort of advancement in like floral techniques? Because I know a
Yes.
lot of old floral techniques have been there for a very, very long time. But
Yes.
throughout your career and throughout your school, have you found any new ways that you think could be incorporated into your lessons of doing things, any new ways of maybe wiring or maybe making
Yes.
bouquets or things like that?
Yes, absolutely. Like when I started, maybe, I mean, old classical way, we would be always there. Way how you probably wire certain flowers could maybe be different if you monitor and see that different techniques works different for you. For example, we always wire the orchids through mouth.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of
Yeah,
make a
like
hook and through
then
mouth.
through
Yeah.
the, yeah.
So we always wire that. Particularly like, and you know, if you read a lot of books, you know, some other florist and designer, you're like, they're doing kind of that. But when we wire Singapore orchids, I remember particular, I don't do that. I make the hook and I just go through the stems and through the pointy part and wire. So when you do, you first don't see the wire, which is great. Second things, you wire stems and you wire the pointy part of the orchids, which is really kind of makes really good. It's orchids is not anymore wobbly or it's not anymore stable.
Yeah.
So like that's what I can think at the moment. It's basically comes through the time when I'm teaching students and say, wow, I find it that they breaking more orchids other way, and think, okay, can we do it better way? So it's always so many techniques that you can do it better way, and you can turn old techniques to kind of twist of the new. And yeah, you can just use completely new techniques, like we doing waxing of the stems of the orchid. So you probably don't need to, parafilm. You don't need to wire. You may just maybe just wax ends and seal the xylem vessels and kind of use it much more quicker. These days, it's more using gluing, which is fantastic if you live in a different part of the world. Like if you're living in Queensland and in Australia, when it's such a hot, you have to be very, very, very careful. When do you use your glue, hot glue or cold glue, particularly because of the temperature. So, like, it's definitely trying to experiment, and that's some things
Yeah.
work, some things doesn't work.
But of course you have to know the underlying principles of how things work, right?
Yeah, of course. And also depend which part of the world. Like if you remember when we did a lot of wedding in United States, you know, you probably traveled with me for some wedding that we did. And I was completely can use so many different techniques that I didn't been able to use over there. And I was 100% sure that flowers will survive and no problem. But if I just doing here on the Sunshine Coast, and you can imagine my students doing up north in the tropical part,
It's too hot.
no way, no way that they will
way too hot.
survive. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it's that's why being the florist and traveling around the world and doing in a different like places, flowers, it's kind of very important for your even skills, for like maybe our audience that like to think about future, it's always good to go and visit some workshop, or maybe just go and do some, classes in different country, experiment different texture, different flowers, different skills, how they doing. So that's why we taking sometimes students on a tour overseas as well. Yeah, because that is very important.
That's something I never really thought about, is using different techniques in different parts of the world for different reasons. Like heat, you mentioned heat, for example. That's quite interesting. And obviously here you really have to be careful of that.
Yes.
Like that you recently made a float for Carnival of Flowers,
Yes.
right? Got some students to help you. And like when you're making a very large float with lots of flowers that's going to be in a parade in sunlight in the middle of the day, you really have to think, how are these flowers going to get water? How are they going to last a week after they're taken down from the float? So when you're designing something like that, let's say here in Australia, like what do you kind of have to keep in mind? Do you just have to put lots and lots of like vials and lots of like wet cotton? Like what's the strategy when doing stuff like
It just
that?
depends, like what you like in that. And again, that is a very good point, what you just said. Like a big scala event, we never cover in certificate 3 floristry. Big scala events we cover in certificate 4. And we've been quite fortunate, like a school, being located in Toowoomba, that we have a Carnival of Flowers. So every year we did the Carnival of Flowers something, long time ago we had exhibition and we have competition, and so we have a church that students always done it through the carnival. And now it's coming like a more float or more big sculptural things, which that's why it's very exciting to do certificate 4 with us, because you had opportunity to make something like that. So this year, like, we had to make a big giant bee. I mean, honestly, I never observed the bee so much, so know how to. So didn't have a lot of time to study. So in this particular time, when we just had to make a giant bee, would be lovely, lovely, lovely to make that from the flowers.
Yeah.
But because, like we said in the beginning, cost of the flowers is huge at the moment. So definitely nobody would be able to pay that, or question is, even if they can, is it worth it? How much expensive?
And how long will they last
Like
for?
how long
for that
they
money?
will last for the money? So in this situation, we needed to last for probably 2 weeks.
2 weeks? I thought it was only 1 week. It's 2 weeks.
No, it's 2 weeks, because after
Wow.
parade, they just put them. I think they're taking this week.
Okay.
They put them in the shopping center to kids, and
That's a long
just
time.
take its photo. So that's quite a long time. So you need to kind of think what can last longer. So you have to pick up the flowers as much as you like that going to last longer. But like in our particular time, I did that when we did that big giant bee, we just cover heavy material, because if we put it all, like I said, flowers would be expensive. But we use the flowers as well. Like, for example, we use the stripes that we kind of place from the creases, yellow creases. Creases we know that would last longer, but also you have to be also very, very careful. Even if we know all the creases last longer, when you pick them from the wholesales, if they've been too much on a cool room, if they've been too much in a cold room, they can get cold burn, and you get them outside in such a hot,
Right.
and it's just going to be they're not going to
Like
last.
it will shock them, right?
It shock them. It looks them like somebody put them like hot water on the top. It just looks really bad. So you have to kind of be careful when you're picking up what you're conditioning them.
Yeah.
So in this particular situation, we had a really easy task. It's not really hard, because we put the stripes from the sausages, like oasis sausages. So that was pretty easy. It's not really hard. But one other things, like when you're making with the brick really easily can get the dry. So how can you make the brick that holds the moisture, because they don't have any container and anything. So before we start to pushing the creases, we cover sausage with the plastic. So plastic will at least a little bit holds the moisture. Yes, we make the hole when we put the creases, but they still will be more on the back moisture to kind of hold it. And that's kind of last much more longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's and beehive we make it from the leaves, and also you have to make the leaves that when they dry looks pretty good, like magnolia leaves, cypress or whatever. And also we use the sunflower. Sunflowers is great to use, but if we put the sunflower in the brick, they wouldn't last that longer. So that's why we place them in the water, like a normal source of the water. And that's last pretty long, yeah. And still is kind of going pretty good. So you have to know which flowers, like which kind of medium, like did they like the just the water, or did they like the brick, or, moss, what. Because like it's really good. I saw so many video on YouTube, and they're just using the chicken wire and fresh flowers and poking the fresh flowers in chicken wire with no any source of the water. That can look for a half an hour amazing, but I wouldn't work for a half an hour, but when you have to, for a long time, that is all those things. You have to have a background knowledge to be able to kind of do that and be proud they're not going to die.
That's because that's something I find very, very poignant, is understanding being comfortable with your skills enough that when you have like this very creative idea out of nowhere, you know how to execute it in a practical way, because not all marvelous ideas that you come up with, right, for designs are going to be practical, because you obviously, like you mentioned, some practical challenges where you could possibly shock the flowers if they've been really cold and really hot, or if things like that, where you need to have the skills necessary to go, okay, well, this is going to be here sitting for a week. I need to make sure it has enough water and enough moisture to last that. Like, that's something that I find really important.
So that's why when students finishing the school, they may have a knowledge, but they don't have experience. But what I always said, and that's something that we in Flowers to Impress give them guidelines, is that we are happy to mentor them. It's a very important in any business. When you start, you need to have a feedback. So you have great idea executing something, but you don't have a lot of background knowledge. Is it that going to work? So if you share with me your idea with my knowledge over the 30 and almost 40 years in this industry, so I would probably straight away say to you yes or no. But that's why I'm saying to my students, you need to do the good sketching. You need to plan what you're going to do. And if I say to you, no, don't do that, you can test me. Absolutely. And you can do it. And you say, oh my goodness, Debby has right. Because I had that background knowledge. I mean, through the experience, like anything. He said it's very important that you have a mentor that you can come and say, what do you think? And listen and guide. And that's why so many of our students is quite successful. Because, even if you're starting the business, same like I had start the school, like I talking to the Kimberly last time, I wouldn't be that good and successful with high standard if I didn't have her like a mentor all the time. And I know I have somebody that I can lean on. This is a very important in the business. You don't felt alone. And you know that you will probably grow if you have that. But if you don't have that, you're doubting yourself all the time, and you don't have anyone that say to you, no, 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 you're on the right path. Just go. It's going to be different story. So we have a story I started, oh, it doesn't working good, I close it. Like, do you experience? So experience is not only good. When we talk about experience can be something bad as well. Good and bad is experience, and that's make success. Like I remember when I do the big weddings. I remember very well. You were quite little in that time. We did wedding in Chicago. I remember that.
Was this
No,
2009 or
no, 2009.
Oh, this is okay. So this is
2009.
okay.
Yeah. So when we did that wedding in Chicago, I did flowers and everything, but I needed some things to put in a cool room because I was just like, so what do I do? So I have a kind of issue if it's that going to fall, like what I'm going to do. So, look, I didn't know anyone, any florist or anyone in Chicago. But I just knocked on the people's door and I just saying, oh, do you have a cool room? I'm doing wedding over there.
Like you knocked on someone's business, businesses like nearby.
Yeah, nearby. And I just said, look, I'm from Australia, I'm doing this, blah, blah. And they was like really lovely people. I said, sure, no worry, we have plenty. I said, look, I was so thankful. And I just said, look, what I'm going to do, like, can I help you with anything? Maybe I know something different so I can help, because, they didn't want the money or anything, but just want to help, which is amazing. So I just showed them like some different skills, what we're doing here, they don't do over there. And I was very thankful. Like I remember even these days, and I always share with my students, that particular florist, they didn't soak. They said, why my flowers in a brick don't last so longer?
Oh my
So I said, okay, show me how do you soak your brick. And they put under the tap.
You're joking.
Honestly. And yeah, because a lot of people is not educated. They just, survival, just want to business, and you say, oh, it's great to open or maybe they has opportunity to open the florist shop and blah, blah, but they're not really professional. So I just said to them, I explained them way how to soak the brick, which is not really hard these days. You just kind of can read or educate yourself, even if you're not. But yeah, and I was very, very thankful for that. So you need to, like any problem that's come, you need to prepare. My wedding that I'm creating now is going good, but could be potential that may not going to. What if that happen? Am I going to? Can I be able to adapt? It was very interesting. One of my students, she had a wedding, probably was first wedding or something like that. So she did a beautiful pose with the tulips, and she did everything amazing. And one tulips broke head. So she was panicking, and she rang me and she said, what do I do? I said, okay, just tell me what's happened. And she said, I just make and just one, and I don't have any more. I said, you don't need to have it. What did you do with that head that broke? She said, nothing. I don't have stems. I said, do you need to have stems? Do you have so many stems? She said, yes. So why wouldn't you just wire the head and pocket in? And oh my goodness, I didn't thought about that. Of course, you don't have experience. You can't think about little things like that. And how bizarre can be, you really need to have somebody that you can talk and that you can just bounce idea and think and even just generally talk.
Okay, I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about the skills necessary to like have a business and to run things and that kind of stuff. When you started, you obviously got accreditation through Kimberly, and you got your assessment and training and that kind of stuff. But on the floristry side of things, how did you I guess get your masters in floristry?
So when you start in the business, generally for me, you have to have a certain skills, of course, and you have to have experience as well, particularly when running the schools. But when you're starting business, like with the students, if they're starting the floristry business, they also have to have skills. Floristry skills, it's really good, but they do have to have skills about the business. So not necessarily if you're good in the floristry, you will run and you will have a good floristry business. No, you can't. You have to have a business skills. Same thing is my situation. It doesn't mean if I have a good skills, I'm a very good florist, that I will be good teacher and that I will have run the good school. So that's not. So you have to have a teaching skills, people skills quite high that you're probably going to be successful in that. But in my situation, I had years and years of experience in floristry back home in Europe, here in Australia, in Sydney, and I started doing my school here in Toowoomba 20 years ago when we moved to Toowoomba. But I was, like I said in the beginning, hungry for knowledge. So I really searching. In that time, internet didn't mean that like we have today. So you have to really look and search and find where is the good school, how can I improve my skills and so on. Government didn't necessarily ask me to do that, but I find a very good school, very old school, very good good school. Prestigious.
I would say.
In Holland, and I contact them, and I went over there. It's a Burma Institute in Aalsmeer, and I went over there. So I did my Dutch advanced design and also master in the floristry with them, and that was amazing. It was really good experience, and I stay really good touch with them even now. And sometimes I will take the students over there so that they can kind of see where I started, all of those things and so on. It was a little bit difficult for me because I remember you was little.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because you had a whole family at the time.
Yeah, you have whole family, and I decided to go. And I remember Dad didn't be overly excited that I go for 3 months and be over there. And it's not easy, when you was in school, but I knew it deep inside that I need to gain more knowledge, much more knowledge than I'm going to teach. If I can do that, I know that my school will be successful because I was hungry for knowledge. I remember in that time, funny story, because grandma was staying with us, and it's her time, she spent 6 months in Australia, 6 months back home. So in that time was her time to travel back home. So we're traveling together. So I remember packing my bags to going in Amsterdam, and I just get some necessary things. And she said to me, no, you can take things. Maybe you needed this and this. So I ended with a 3 big suitcase. And I remember when I was coming to the people that I staying, the boarding with for 3 months, there has it's in Amsterdam. It's a small houses. It's not like we have huge. So I just have to go to the staircase up. I didn't been able to pull my bags.
Oh my goodness.
Because I was just thinking, I learned to listen to my mother. Even I was 40 years old, and she was so excited. She just said, oh, I'm 80 and I have a kid going in school with 40. That was so funny. So, and she was so excited. This was her first time that she going through Amsterdam. So she was looking how that looks, the Holland, how that looks country from the plane. We was kind of excited, but that was a great time for me. I gained knowledge, I gained the skills, different skills. Like it's always good to kind of get everywhere as much as you get different skills. That it was 2007 when I went to Holland, and it's good skills that I get and bring back. So I think 2009 or 10, I went to United States because they have a huge symposium every year is happening over there. So I attend that as well. And as much as I can when I'm traveling, I like to attend different schools, attend different symposium to just gain as much as you can skills. I've been a little bit less fortunate. I didn't been able to get a lot of competition from overseas because, having young family. Yeah. What did you thought about that when I went to Holland?
I don't remember too much of it. I remember that you were going overseas and you were going to be for a while, and that's kind of it. And then you just, I guess, as a kid, you just kind of you brush it off. But I mean, I always just thought that you were just working or something. I guess.
Sure.
So I guess my takeaway from all of this is kind of like be constantly curious, be constantly wanting to learn new skills.
Exactly.
So do you think now, even after all this time, that you're still just as passionate about, like you mentioned you are, but do you feel like it's changed in these 20 years, or do you feel like you're still kind of excited about something new in floristry?
It is like, this is amazing profession for me, and I'm always passionate. And even day that I died, I will be passionate about it, floristry and learning new skills. But is it things change after 20 years? Do I get tired? I would never ever get tired from the flowers, but maybe I'm tired with the certain type of the business, like that I run or something, but not for the flowers. Do I willing to learn even now more? Yes, absolutely. So do I planning some different adventure with the flowers in my semi-retirement years? Yes, absolutely. And I still would love to learn. Particularly, I love to teaching because I can learn more from my students, not about skills. I give them skills, but I learn how they thinking, how they process of the thinking with the flowers. So, and that's how I can help them, but also I can learn with them and understand them better. And also put my level in a different level because they are young people, they're thinking different, So I learning from them in a process of the thinking, but maybe they're learning the skills, of course, from me. So definitely I am still very interesting of learning. And I would say that is a one way of successing in business for my students, or maybe for some past students that running the business. You can't open the business and stay there because you will go down. You always need to update your skills. No matter what is it workshop, is it traveling, is whatever you said, reading, listening, whatever that can be, you always need to improve, because otherwise you will be like a trend. You will be for 2 or 3 years and you're gone. But that's not success. You can't say that I ran the successful business for 3 years. That's nothing. You can say I run the business for 50 years or 30 years or 20 years. Do you know what I mean? So you do really need to constantly learn, educating yourself personally and also educating yourself in the industry that you are. That is very important.
Because absolutely, and that's something that I've found even with my skills in floristry, because I haven't been using them and I haven't been actually doing them daily. Like, let's say someone would, if they started a business and they were, making deliveries daily. I have realized that, like, have forgotten how to do certain things, or in certain things that I do know how to do, I don't know how to do very well, just because I don't have that dexterity that I used to when I was
Yes.
doing it in high school. So yeah, that's very important. I think is to be always curious and always wanting to keep up to date and update your skills. And I think
And that's why
very,
in Australia is amazing, because that's required from us, from the government. If you running the school like I do, like, I have to always update my skill. And that's kind of giving me a reason to travel, which is great, but also a little bit harder for the florists. They think, oh, I finished my certificate, I can stop here. No, you constantly need, and like I said in the beginning, be careful what is your resources that you're learning from. Just be careful. Not anything that you see on the social media or YouTube. You just be picky what to pick and who you pick. Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this third episode, and hopefully we can do this again and dive into some different topics. For everyone listening, like, subscribe, share with your friends if you think it's interesting, and
Yes.
yeah, and
just give us the comments if you like certain topic that we can cover. I know some of they said probably maybe something about the wholesales, growers, and we will feature in our next one some or students that growing the flowers, so that's good. But also maybe some certain topic that is really tricky, or you want to be happy to have a podcast with that.
awesome.
Thank you.